Psalm 37. I've been making patches for 10 years for synthesizers for Gorg, Dave Smith Instruments, Novation, those sort of guys. And it's about time that I did some videos on the synthesizers that I know and love. I've got a pretty good Instagram page that you can go and check out. I'm happy with that, but I thought I'd transfer over to YouTube because it's been a long time coming. I've only done videos of patches that I've done in the past and maybe some synthesizer audio demos as well. But it'd be nice to talk to you about how I create patches and how I feel about various different synthesizers that I've used. So I'm going to start with the DX7 today, but we'll be looking at the Matrix 12, the Jupiter 6, maybe the Prophet 08. I've got a Micro Moog I'd like to talk to you about. I'd like to talk about Eurorack as well, System 100 by Roland, and then we'll probably go and have a look at some of my friends' synthesizers who have much better collections than I do. So I'm looking forward to that. And as we go through, we'll probably start messing around with different presets. We might even patch from scratch, let's call it that. But I don't know how these videos are going to go, so we'll start with the DX7, see how popular it is, see how cringeworthy I am, and maybe we'll scale it back from there. I've decided to start with the DX7 today because I've just bought one again. I bought one about 10 years ago and we just didn't gel together. It was a DX7 2D, I think. And I tried, but like with most people, I think we just kind of get a little bit lost in the menu and a bit confused as to what's really supposed to be going on with the synthesizer and how to program it properly. 10 years have passed since then, and as I say, I've worked with a lot of different synth manufacturers. I've worked with a lot of different synths outside of working directly on prototypes and that sort of thing. And I decided to return to the DX7. I'm lucky enough to have purchased a DX1. That was 18 months ago now, and it was a great price, otherwise I wouldn't have bought it, but it did need work. So it's been with the tech guy for all of my ownership with it. So I get a little bit antsy about that. So I decided to buy a DX7 in the meantime and just get a little bit connected and design some presets for the DX7. Maybe just for my own use, but we'll see how it goes. And then transfer it onto the DX1 where it'll be that much bigger. I decided to buy a Mark 1 DX7 for a couple of reasons. Firstly, my poor experience with the DX7 Mark II. Secondly, if the Mark 1 DX7 is as organic as I'm told it was, similar to the DX1, then that was definitely the sound that I wanted to go. I think it's 12-bit as opposed to 16-bit, and a lot of the things that I say I'm not going to be factual, so it's better if you want to know synthesizer specifications properly, look them up on Google and Wikipedia, because all I'm going to be talking about is sound and characteristics rather than specifications. So if anything I say is wrong, fine, tough luck. To get the right specs, look them up and talk to people that care about specs. I'm not too bothered. I care about how many oscillators something's got and how many envelopes something's got, because that's the basis of sound design to me, oscillators and envelopes. But another reason that I got this DX7 is because the Mark 1 can take a considerable amount of upgrades that the DX7 2s can't. This one I bought the SuperMax upgrade for, and it's blowing my mind, and this is one of the reasons that I wanted to start doing video with the DX7, because I wanted to really sing praises about the SuperMax upgrade and what it can do. I found no bugs with it that I've been able to replicate. I think there was a problem with the arpeggiator stuck on latch at one point, but that could be user error, usually is. But generally speaking, I think it crashed once, since I've had SuperMax running, so I've had to power cycle it. But generally speaking, it's been really, really good. Primarily, the reason I got it is the ability to stack voices on top of each other. Now, this doesn't make it a bi-timbral machine, it just means that you can take 16 of the voices and divide them down into 8, so you've got 2 lines of 8, or down to 6, so you've got 3 lines of 6 and then 4. It's along those lines anyway. So really you can have your one sound and then divide it so that you can stack them on top and detune them, and it's really that detunability that gets me excited, because you can really start to make sounds much more organic and less realistic, or more realistic depending on how you program it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these headphones on, and we're going to start with the classic DX7 electric piano sound from stock, and then we're going to basically start to mess around with it and see what you can do from scratch in terms of the stock DX7, and then what you can do with the SuperMax. So let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to start with the DX7 electric piano sound. Really impressive sound. As a preset designer, you really appreciate the work that went into this and the skill that it took to design this sound. There's a few synth sounds out there that have made the, changed the record industry, and not many preset designers make a name for themselves, but this preset is quite incredible. So stock, tasty sound. Let's add a little bit of reverb to this. If you want to know what reverb I'm using, it is the UAD Lexicon 480L. Some people like it, some people who have used the real machine, so it's nothing like it, but I like the reverb that it produces for me, so I stick with that. Generally speaking, at the moment I'm not designing too many presets, I'm just sort of messing about with synthesizers, so I just enjoy playing and I enjoy having the reverb on. A lot of people, you watch a lot of videos and you read a lot of the comments, and people don't like having reverb on demos. I understand it, you want to hear the stock sound, but there's plenty of other videos that you can listen to, a DX7 with stock sounds. That's not what we're doing today. We're going to get the best out of the sound that we can. So I'm starting with this DX7 electric piano sound. First thing I want to do is change the speed of that LFO. It's too fast, I'm not enjoying it. That's one thing I would have rolled back if I was programming this synthesizer from scratch, or programming this sound from scratch rather. So I'm just going to go to the edit compare button, then click speed on the LFO. It's currently set to 34. I'm going to roll it back to 21. That's kind of where I like to have the LFO on the DX7. And now, because of that, the rate, or rather the level of the LFO is a bit too much. When you slow it down, it becomes more noticeable, so I'm going to decrease the range to about 19. It was at 50, so that's more subtle. have is a foot pedal, so I want the sound to continue after I've lifted my fingers off the keys. So we're looking at changing the release time on the amplitude envelope. And the weird quirky thing about the DX7 is obviously we have 6 operators, so we have to change the amplitude envelope on all 6 of those operators. We can do that by creating one envelope and then automating it, sort of copying and pasting that envelope on all the other operators, but that takes time. And also a lot of the attacks and decays might be different between operators to get us this glassy Rhodes piano, electric piano sound. So we don't really want to copy everything of the envelope across. I just want to change the release time. So I go to the envelope release time and go to rate number 4. Scroll it down because for some reason the DX7 or the DX instruments, the release and attack times are inverted to what you would normally think. So the lower the release time, the lower the release rate on the envelope, the longer the release. So it's just kind of the reverse of what you would normally have on a synthesizer, which I imagine catches a lot of people out, which it did me. So I'm changing the release rate on all of the operators down to about 23. So this is going to enable me to press a key and have it continue. So let's have a little listen to where we are at the moment. Sounding all good so far, but what I want to do is add a bit of character to it. So instead of using the aftertouch as the LFO control, I'm just going to stick the LFO straight on and leave it on. So now the aftertouch pitch is switched off. I'm going to add some constant LFO. So if I turn it all the way up, you can hear that. But I'm going to slow it right down to about 7. So let's hear how that sounds. So that's, we need to scale that back, it's way too wavy. So let's scale it back. And I'm going to knock it down to about 12, see how that sounds. Just hear it becomes a lot more subtle and subconscious. It helps the sound to move, and this is a trick that I'll use a lot in preset design, especially in sort of hybrid synthesizers where you want the sound to be a little bit more analog and unpredictable. You just strings especially too. You'll just take an LFO, add a little bit of amount to the pitch LFO and slow it right down, and it just gives a very subtle change to the pitch. You can hear it there, it's still a little bit aggressive, but we'll stick with it. I think it's okay. So great. Another thing that I want to change is the attack rate, because it's really aggressive with this sound, and when you start stacking using SuperMax, it will become more apparent and it will start almost clipping in a way. So you want to increase the attack a little bit, and what we'll probably do in a little while is turn the sound into a pad. But for now, I'm just going to roll back the attack a little bit so it's less aggressive. So when we hit a note, it doesn't sound so clunky, so clippy, so aggressive. And again, I have to do this on all operators. And I'm going to just move it to about 85. any more than that and it will start to become, you know, the volume increase will become really slow. So now I've taken the edge off the attack on the amplitude envelope, so it's going to be less aggressive when we play it, because there's quite a metallic aggressive entrance to the sound, so just rolling that back a little bit helps us to soften the sound a wee bit. Might not be immediately obvious, but it's there, I can hear it. Bring in a little bit more LFO to the pitch. That's what I'm talking about. Sounded good so far, and that's basically where you get with the standard DX7. You get that beautiful electric piano sound and you just tweak it, lengthen the volume of the notes, soften it maybe a little bit and add some character to the LFO pitch rate. And that's probably where I would go with the standard DX7, just creating it just for me. Now this is where SuperMax comes in, because that sounds great to me, but like a lot of different synthesizers, I just want to thicken it up, and it's a classic technique that I will use with a bitimbral synthesizer to just say we're not going to create any crazy sound effects by layering one standard sound with something going crazy in the background. No, let's stack these two sounds exactly the same together and then just slightly detune them to thicken up the sound, and I'll do that with a bitimbral synthesizer. Not that this is bitimbral with the SuperMax, as I've already explained. You're just dividing down the voices and layering them on top of each other with the ability to then detune those layers together. And but you know, that's generally what I do with any other synthesizer anyway. So let's dive into the SuperMax. SuperMax is accessed by clicking the function space button on the DX7 once the SuperMax is installed, and pressing button number 13, I think, will get you in and out of the SuperMax menu. So we're there now, and now I'm going to go over to stack mode, and it's divided into three sections: volume 3, 4, volume 2, volume 3 and volume 4. These volume numbers are the stack modes, and I'm going to increase the volume on volume 2 all the way up, and it'll enable us to start using 8 voices on top of 8 voices instead of 16 voices total. Then I'll go over to the course, or rather the scale frequency of the voice, which currently is -24, so it's going to be 2 octaves below the standard sound. So it'll be something like this. Let me roll that volume in and out so you can hear what's going on. That's standard. Then we've got the same sound but 2 octaves difference between them. That's not generally the sort of way I would go about it. What I would do is get some changes in there, so very subtle, more subtle changes. Standard thing to do would just to keep that second stack at the same pitch. So we've actually got 2 banks of 8 there sounding, but you can't hear any difference because digitally the frequency is exactly the same. So we just roll it to start fine tuning that second one, and you'll hear the difference when I start messing around with it. So that's way different. But but when you start rolling it back in, suddenly you start to get that sort of chorus effect that really thickens up the sound, something that I typically do when I'm designing presets. Still too much? So now we're 8x8, we've detuned the second stack slightly. What I want to do is change the frequency by a number of tones or semitones. So we're going to increase it up to say 7 so that it's melodic. Generally speaking, 2, 5, 7, 9, those sort of steps are melodic to me, and I'll just, every time I'm programming a synthesizer, I'll just try each one and see how it sounds. This was 7. Let's knock it down to 5 so you can hear what that sounds like. Knock it down to 2 so you can hear that. Bring it up to 9. Think about it, if we can play 4 layers on top of each other, we can create chords. So let's build up a chord. So I'll drop this one down to 7 in its frequency. So we've got 2 layers. Let's add in another layer, so I'm going to turn volume 3 all the way up, go back into coarse. Currently it's defaulted to an octave above the original sound, so you should be able to hear this now. Let's roll it down to 9, see how that sounds. Not sure I'm liking that too much. I'll bring it down to 5. That's better. That's more melodic, I think. I'm just going to detune volume 3 a little bit. We've already detuned it, but I'm just going to change the fine tune. Just to give it that more wavy sound. So we've got 3 layers now. Let's add the 4th layer and final layer that SuperMax allows us to build. So let's pop it up to 2 octaves above. It's quite nice, isn't it? I'm going to roll it back till we find a higher pitch frequency that is in harmony with the other stacks that we've built. So this will take a bit of just listening by ear and seeing which ones fits nicely. this point onwards, I think it's going to sound better as a pad, the sound. So I'm going to change the amplitude of every operator, and that is rate number 1. Of every operator, and I'm going to knock it down to about 25 on each operator, the rate of each operator down to the rate of each operator envelope, rate 1 down to 25. Are you following? As the sound evolves, so the programming needs to evolve as well. And how I'm feeling now is we're going to change the LFO pitch again, speed it up a bit, increase the amount, and then whack on the delay for the pitch LFO, which means when we press the key there will be a delay between pressing the key and the LFO coming in. And on the DX7 it has to be the level of that, or the amount of that has to be quite high, so it has to be around 78, because otherwise it just kicks in quite quickly after you press a note. Around 78 it'll be somewhere like this. So it came in a little bit late, I'll roll it back to about 70. Gonna roll it back to 65 and slow it down to 21. Still don't like it, too fast. Roll it down to 12. I really like my LFO slow. Now it's too aggressive. There's too much amount on the pitch envelope LFO. That's about where I want it to be. So I could change the amount of pitch LFO by using the aftertouch on the DX7, but I can't be bothered. I just want it to be automated, and that's where the LFO delay comes in. So you press the note and the pitch will modulate a few seconds after you press the key. Too subtle. So there you go, there's an example of patching the original electronic piano with the SuperMax, and you get a really great detuned, layered sound with harmony. Just one example. I mean, there's so many great sounds that actually come stock with SuperMax, and again I really appreciate the work that's gone into the presets of the SuperMax, because when it ships they just it comes with 512 spaces to save presets on, but they're filled. Admittedly, I think there's only 64 sounds that are copied and pasted across those 512 spaces. But those 64 sounds, a lot of work's gone into them, and they really sound great. I mean, the DX7 is now sounding like a bit of a rompler to me. I'll go through a couple of the sounds just so that you understand what I'm talking about. Now, I never expected a DX7 to sound like that. That's something I would more expect maybe from a wave station, something like that, or a decent sampler that's sampled from, I don't know, maybe an Alpha Juno or something. I'm not entirely sure. I've never played an Alpha Juno, but I did not expect a DX7 to come up with these sounds. But it comes down to SuperMax being able to stack sounds on top of each other and then changing the frequency between those sounds, the pitch frequency, and just being able to harmonise between each other. So that's a really great example. This is a pretty good sound from SuperMax. But there is just one operator in there that I absolutely can't stand, and I think it's number 5. So I'll go to Edit, Compare, and then knock out operator 5. It's better. I like the piano, one of the pianos they have in here. That sounds a bit like Orbital's Belfast to me. I'm a huge Orbital fan, and I know the synths that they've used in the past, and I understood that the DX7 was one that they had used, and it's just all over their first Green album. You know, some of the sounds that I've gone through and I've heard it and I've just been like, yep, Belfast. Good sounding piano there, and again what I think I'm going to do is just change the rate number 4 of each operator. And stack them and detune them and see how that sounds. One more stack, go on. Mess about with the FO amount again, slow it down because that's how we roll. Still too fast and still too much. Start of the amplitude, I want to roll that back because it's just too much. It's annoying me. So there we go, let's see if that improves things. Yeah, and it completely gets rid of it. It's like the envelope is too clippy at the front. I don't know whether that's just a DX7 thing or whether it's something specific to the way that the modulator and the algorithm on this particular preset, whether the modulators and the carriers are reacting in a specific way that when the envelope is too close, that the sound is just too crunchy and clippy at the start. But I've completely got rid of that by rolling it back. The rate of envelope 1 at this point on each operator is about 80, 85. So we listen to the arpeggiator whilst we're here with this particular sound. It's quite, it's still quite an aggressive attack, so it'll be good on the arpeggiator. But we should expect some clipping, and it might not be pleasant. We'll just have to see how we go. we can latch. So let's latch. That's enough of that. Now what's this one? King Crimson? This one I like. This one I like a lot. Again, that's that sort of late 80s, early 90s stack sound. One more. So another thing I haven't mentioned about SuperMax is it has a delay effect, and it's surprisingly authentic. Generally, I don't know how it works, but it might be some sort of a MIDI effect where it just repeats the note. Now, the more notes that you use to create that delay effect, the more voices you're using. So if you've got 16 voices and they're stacked, say they're stacked down to 4 voice availability, the delay sound isn't going to work so well because the delay is using those voices again. And this sound has a short delay on it. You can hear that note being pressed twice. Let's see if we can dive into some of those delay effects. So I found delay volume. We can roll back delay time here. There it is. That was that's a long delay. Like, the delay can be really long. Yeah, takes a while, and every note that's played is slightly quieter than the one before it. Not a lot of feedback on that. It's got feedback 1. Let's increase that. It's really authentic. But that's basically it, I think, for the SuperMax and the DX7. Don't want to go too much more into it, but it's transformed this DX7 for me. I have to say as well that having bought the DX7 for the second time, after 10 years of preset design, I've really begun to understand the DX7 and how to program it, which is a blessing. I mean, there's still obviously a lot of the algorithms and how the algorithms, which algorithms are best to use in which circumstances still elude me a little bit, but I understand what they're doing, and I understand how to get from A to B with a preset. It's not too much. I don't really find the menu difficult at all, to be honest. I get it. It's clicked. I'm happy. But obviously it's still harder to program than analog synthesizer with everything out in front of you. But I mean, you can't knock the DX7 for the way that it sounds, especially the Mark 1 with those 12-bit chips in them. Much preferred over the cleaner DX7 too, but everybody's slightly different. Being able to stack with this SuperMax upgrade is just, I love it. So I'm going to go away and just play for the next couple of hours with it without you, because you've probably seen enough. See ya.